Love bombing. The emotional flood. Love bombing operates like a psychological flash flood. One moment you are standing on dry ground, the next you are swept away by an overwhelming current of affection, attention, and promises. The manipulator does not just show interest. They worship you. Every text is urgent, every compliment extreme, every gesture grand. They study your deepest desires and reflect them back like a mirror, creating the illusion that you have found your perfect match. What makes this tactic so insidious is how it hijacks your brain chemistry. The sudden influx of validation triggers dopamine releases similar to addiction. You become chemically dependent on their approval before you even know their middle name. Then comes the inevitable withdrawal. Once they sense you are hooked, the flood stops. The daily calls become weekly. The constant praise turns to criticism. The person who could not live without you suddenly has better things to do. Now you're chasing a high that will never return. You compromise your boundaries, ignore red flags, accept treatment you would never tolerate before, all trying to resurrect that initial intensity. You do not realize you are not trying to save a relationship. You are trying to feed an engineered addiction. Isolation. Building your prison. Isolation never announces itself. It arrives disguised as concern, wrapped in reasonable requests. It starts with innocent observations. Your friend seems negative lately, or I just want us to spend more quality time together. These seeds grow slowly, almost imperceptibly, until one day you realize your entire world has shrunk to one person. The manipulator becomes your sole interpreter of reality. Without other perspectives to challenge their narrative, their version of events becomes truth by default. They might say your family does not understand you, that your friends are jealous, that coworkers are trying to undermine you. Each suggestion plants doubt about the people who could offer you clarity or support. The genius of isolation is that it feels like choice. You're not forbidden from seeing others. You just start believing you should not. Maybe they cause too much drama. Maybe they do not have your best interests at heart. The manipulator positions themselves as your only true ally in a world full of threats. By the time you recognize the cage, you have already forgotten what freedom felt like. Gaslighting. The reality. Thief. Gaslighting is psychological warfare against your own mind. The manipulator does not just lie. They architect an alternate reality where your memories are faulty, your perceptions unreliable, and your emotions invalid. They rewrite history with such conviction that you begin doubting your own lived experiences. It starts small. They insist that conversation never happened. The promise was never made. You are being too sensitive about that cruel comment, which was actually a joke, and you should know that. These micro-denials accumulate like carbon monoxide, odorless and invisible, until your confidence in your own judgment is poisoned. The most devastating aspect is how it compounds. Once you start doubting small things, you lose the ability to trust big things. Did they really hurt you, or are you imagining it? Are your concerns legitimate, or are you crazy, like they keep suggesting? The manipulator becomes your only source of truth, and that truth always serves their agenda. You become dependent on them to interpret your own life, unable to distinguish between what really happened and what they tell you happened. Guilt. Tripping. The emotional debt collector. Guilt tripping transforms your empathy into a weapon against you. The manipulator never makes direct demands. Instead, they paint themselves as the eternal victim of your choices. Every boundary you set becomes an act of cruelty. Every no becomes a betrayal. They collect your normal human limitations as if they were personal attacks. I guess I will just handle everything alone, like always. After everything I have done for you, this is how you treat me? Other people would appreciate having someone who cares this much. These statements are precision engineered to trigger your conscience. They know good people hate causing pain, so they manufacture pain from thin air. The truly toxic element is how guilt tripping inverts responsibility. Suddenly, you are apologizing for having needs, for setting limits, for being human. The manipulator's unreasonable expectations become your failures. Their inability to respect boundaries becomes your selfishness. You find yourself constantly trying to pay off an emotional debt that grows faster than you can settle it, forever behind on payments you never actually owed. Triangulation. The numbers game. Triangulation is manipulation through manufactured democracy. Instead of dealing with you directly, the manipulator recruits allies, real or imagined, to overwhelm your position. They transform every disagreement into a popularity contest where you are always outnumbered. They might invoke anonymous authorities. Everyone thinks you are overreacting. They might recruit actual people, sharing selective versions of your conflicts to win sympathy and support. They might even fabricate entirely fictional validators. The goal is always the same, to make you feel isolated in your perspective, unreasonable in your position. In families, this looks like a parent who complains about you to siblings, turning them into unwitting weapons. In relationships, it is the partner who maintains inappropriate closeness with an ex, using them as a constant threat. In workplaces, it is the colleague who builds coalitions against you before you even know there's a conflict. The triangulator never fights alone, ensuring every confrontation feels like facing an army. Silent treatment, the weapon of absence. The silent treatment weaponizes human nature against itself. We are biologically wired for connection, neurologically programmed to seek resolution. The manipulator exploits this by making their presence contingent on your compliance. They do not need to argue their point. They simply vanish until you surrender. This is not healthy space-taking or processing time. This is calculated psychological torture. They remain physically present, but emotionally absent, moving through shared spaces like a ghost. They know exactly how long to maintain the silence. Long enough to cause anxiety, not so long that you might find peace in it. The target inevitably breaks first, apologizing for things they did not do, agreeing to things they do not want, just to restore basic human interaction. Each cycle teaches a lesson. Resistance equals abandonment. Eventually, you learn to self-censor, avoiding any action that might trigger another episode of aggressive silence. Projection, the mirror shield. Projection is the manipulator's ultimate deflection technique. They take their own toxic traits and hurl them at you like accusations. The cheater accuses you of infidelity. The liar questions your honesty. The controlling person says you're too demanding. They create a smokescreen of your supposed flaws to hide their actual misconduct. This works because accusation triggers introspection in healthy people. When someone claims you're selfish, you naturally examine your behavior for selfishness. While you are busy soul-searching, the manipulator continues their genuinely selfish actions unchallenged. You waste energy defending against imaginary crimes while real ones go unnoticed. The long-term damage is identity distortion. After enough projection, you might actually start believing you possess these negative qualities. You become what they accuse you of being, not through action, but through internalized false narrative. Smear campaigns, the social assassination. A smear campaign is character murder committed in public. The manipulator spreads carefully crafted stories designed to destroy your credibility before you can share your truth. They understand that whoever tells the story first shapes the narrative, and they make sure their version reaches every relevant ear. They mix truth with lies to make the poison harder to detect. They share private information out of context. They present themselves as the concerned party, just trying to help, while reluctantly sharing troubling information about you. The brilliance is in the preemptive strike. By the time you realize what is happening, opinions have already crystallized. The social damage often outlasts the relationship with the manipulator. Even after the truth emerges, the stain remains. People remember the accusation more than the correction. Shifting goalposts, the endless race. This tactic ensures you can never win because winning is constantly redefined. You meet their stated requirements only to discover new requirements. You provide the proof they demanded only to learn that proof is not enough. The finish line retreats faster than you can run toward it. The exhaustion is the point. They want you perpetually striving, forever falling short, always apologizing for not doing enough. This manufactured inadequacy keeps you too busy trying to please them to question why their standards keep changing. Infantilization, the competence thief. Infantilization systematically strips away your adult autonomy. The manipulator treats your every decision as wrong, every judgment as poor, every capability as insufficient. They position themselves as the perpetual adult while reducing you to an eternal child who needs constant supervision and correction. Over time, learned helplessness develops. You stop trusting your own judgment because it has been so thoroughly criticized. You defer to their authority even in areas where you're actually more competent. You become what they treat you as, dependent, uncertain, incapable of functioning without their guidance. The prophecy fulfills itself through sustained psychological erosion.